welcome back. Today we're going to kind of continue to extend upon the reporting work that we've done in the prior videos, and this time we're going to use some cool visualization tools that are all open source. Anybody can go ahead and take a look. So today you're going to need Grafana, so I'll put a link in the description to Grafana that you can go download and deploy. There's various deployment methods, and at the very end I'll show you a pretty cool sneak preview of how we're using Grafana here. You're going to need PG admin like you used before, and you're going to need a local instance of Iris CLI. So again, because we're going to go ahead and report against the data on a particular cluster, we need to get that cluster information off there for the custom reporting database. And so if you got Iris CLI locally on your system, all you have to do is run one simple command, is Iris CLI. Put in the server IP address, and then you're going to run custom reporting space DB. And you're going to put in the username and authenticate. And bam, we have our IP address that it's running at, the port it's running at, the username, and the password. So what you're going to do is you're going to head over to Grafana, load up Grafana, make sure it's running. This one happens to be a containerized version of Grafana, which we'll get into a bit later. But we go into configuration, data sources, and here you can see it is already configured, but you just go add data sources. You find your Postgres instance, and you provide that information in here. Put in the host and the port, so host :port 27999. The database again is Postgres. The username is reporting_read. The password is here. Put that in there. One simple thing you're going to have to also change here is SSL mode disable. And save and test. And you can see database connections perfect. So the next thing you're going to want to do, we're going to go over to dashboards. And here I have a couple dashboards created, but you can go ahead and create a brand new dashboard and kind of follow along here. I have two particular dashboards. We're going to spend time in one of them here called test direct queries. So what's cool about Grafana is once you connect it to your data source and you tell it a little bit about your data source, you can give it ways to kind of query and visualize information in a time series and time scale kind of way. So if we go into here, you can see I have a dashboard pre-configured with a couple of dials and graphs. And up here in the corner, it allows you to rescale and resize your time series. So I can look at the last 2 days, the last 6 months, the last 1 year. It also has some cool things like you can look at the previous week and see what happened. So let's go ahead and show you how we create some of these queries specifically. So you can use PG admin like we have before to connect in and test some of the queries that you're looking at. Today we're using a table called storage usage stats on the cluster. And we're creating a couple of graphs around that. But you can use any of these tables directly in the Postgres database. So there's a couple of simple tricks that you're going to have to do in order to get the data to show up and scale with the built-in time functions of Grafana. So we can drop in here, and when you create a new query, there'll be a little toggle here over to the side with a pencil mark, and this will allow you to edit raw SQL. So because Grafana expects a time parameter to be in there, we need to take the way the Cohesity stores time, which is in microseconds since epoch, to convert it into milliseconds since epoch, and then convert that to a timestamp. And then I've done some date truncations to look at it at just the day. You can change this however you'd like. So this is a pretty important part of the query. So we're selecting that timestamp usex, which you see over here, timestamp usex. We're dividing it by 1 million. We're then converting it to a timestamp, and we're using the date trunc function to make it a day. What's the most important thing here is you're adding as time. This is a very specific alias that you have to add for Grafana, so it can very simply add this in and allow everything to scale up appropriately. In this one, we're just simply taking the average of physical byte size, dividing it by 1024 by 1024 by 1024, because again, this is in bytes, and so we're turning it into gigabytes from this table. And we're grouping it by the timestamp and ordering it by the timestamp to make it super simple. Once you've done that, the graph will show up. All you have to do is add a title, pick the visualization that you want, and so you can kind of move this around and pick something that works for you. And it ends up being very simple. Here I've done a couple of breakdowns of average daily dedupe rates for backups, views, and replication, as well as an average daily job failure rate. And I've kind of tiered out the different colors just to give me some good visualization. And I've done that here as well. So again, once we'll go show you what we do here. Again, we're converting that timestamp into something that Grafana can use. Doing our maths to find the dedupe rate between the data written in bytes and the data in bytes. We're adding a special null if just in case it stumbles across a null value. We can kind of handle it. Moving them both down and from that same table, and doing some simple where clause filtering. So we want to make sure we're not grabbing null entries in the database, just in case there happen to be some. And in our test cluster, there happen to be some. And this entity type is how we're selecting views in this instance. So entity type 3 is equal to views. You can see this by doing a quick change over here to pgadmin and looking at a related query to the storage usage stats. And if you can see here, there's the storage consumer types. So this allows you to kind of just see what's going on over there. And so here are the different types that we have: backup, replication, and view, and that marries in quite nicely to the gauges we have put in place. In order to do this simple little color changing things, we have under the field when you're editing it, you can go down and set various thresholds. If we're getting, you can change this to 1, 2, and then 4. Apply that. And there we go. It's super simple. Once you've created your dashboard, you can save and export this. And I will export this particular dashboard to at least get you started making your own tiles for your own clusters. Again, these are querying directly off of the that Cohesity clusters group database, which allows you to kind of see in more real time and monitor the particular system. I will be building upon this as we move forward. You can set various refresh rates, so you don't even have to worry about having to manually refresh data. This gives you a great knock-like view of your data. One thing that I did want to say, I was going to share with you towards the end of this video is not only this is Grafana, but this is running in a pretty special environment. And we'll show you how this is done. This will be a future video on how you can do this yourself as well, pretty simply. But if you go back over to the Cohesity cluster that we're reporting against, Cohesity, if you remember, has this notion of a marketplace where you can download and install containerized applications and that can interact with the Cohesity environment. I've gone through and actually created an instance of Grafana to be running directly on the Cohesity cluster. So I didn't need a separate environment to spin up the container to work. And as you can see here, if I go to all instances, I have my instance of Grafana spun up, and it's been running for the last 3 days without an issue. And all you have to do to access it is click the Open app, and it'll log you in based on the credentials provided. Again, thank you very much. I hope you found this useful. Maybe you learned something new, maybe have a new tool. If there's things you'd like to see or new tiles you'd like to see added to this, please comment or reach out to me directly. And hope you all have a lovely day.